So in doing all this research for RF and microwave radiation, and even ELF, what's the common denominator? Because as an industrial hygienist, we get totally into the weeds of like, well, this causes this, and we kind of accept that. We don't know at the microbiological level of the human body how carbon tet causes liver disease or fatty liver disease or things like that. So, but with EMF, it's like, oh, well, we don't know. We don't know things. Like, we know epidemiologically, we studied the populations. We're like, well, there's a trend here. Like, oh, people are getting, lung cancer from asbestos or whatever it might be. You have to go above and beyond with RF because the train of technology doesn't want to be stopped. I mean, people react violently, like, going, you can't, I want to use my cell phone and it's just fine, especially people in the tech sector. They don't want to hear any bad news about EMF. But the thing is, it's been around for decades, and now it's been ramped up, and now it's proliferation. Like, you just go outside this building, like you're in the elevator, and you're getting 0.002 volts per meter. That's like a measure of RF. You get out on the street over here, and it's 3 volts per meter, which is half of the China and Russia's standards. They have 6 volts per meter is their exposure level. In the United States, it's 61.2. So our level of exposure to RF is 10 times Russia and China, and they're even above most other countries in Europe. So what it really comes down to when I'm doing all this reading is it affects the body on a cellular level, which in turn turns to an atomic level, where we have reactive oxygen species, which are missing an electron in their oxygen, and they go on, they just eat electrons from wherever they can get it. So I talk about reactive oxygen species that are also called oxidative anions, also known as free radicals. So most people just talk about free radicals like, what are those? Those are oxygen molecules that are out there and they're missing an electron and they're chomping, they're stealing electrons from wherever they can get it. The reason why, and I mean, I had to learn all sorts of new terms in doing this research because inside our bodies right now, we have like, 7 octillion atoms in our bodies, which is like 7 billion atoms, and then all that comprises into guesstimated about 60 trillion cells. And so they're all bumping and, it's all contained by the skin, but it's like, and they have signaling mechanisms. So like, basically we're bioelectrochemical beings. Like right now we don't think we're really doing anything, but our bodies are working. It's like trying to gain homeostasis and like keep our heart pumping and by the time I finish the sentence, your body has created a million new blood cells, and those are going to go through your body again and again, like a zillion times, and then be, basically after they're all used up, eaten, and then redistributed and to your system again, so you can create more. So you can just lose your mind trying to figure out the Krebs cycle, which is how ATP is created. But this is what a normal cell looks like. You have reactive oxygen species that are created either by the ATP process or from other chemical toxins come in, and they say you have a bacteria come into your body and then phagocytes attack it and they create their own bleach basically, and then they kill it and then they distribute it. But the problem is it takes it from the lipids, which is the cell wall, and once it gets in, if it gets into the nucleus, that's where the damage comes, when it steals it from the DNA. And the proteins do a lot of stuff too. Like in your body, there's like at least 500,000 different types of proteins, if not millions, and then there's trillions of actual proteins, and they're inside the cells, they're outside the cells, and they're doing all sorts of specific things. There's 2 types of proteins. There's enzymes, which make things happen. They're like catalysts. And then there's hormones, which is like your endocrine system. When you're stimulated to eat, or if you see someone you're attracted to, all of a sudden your hormones kick in. You're like, whoa, It's all below the limit, It's all happening, and you don't even know it. So this is most of the production of reactive oxygen species, also known as free radicals, come from the ATP production. So, and ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It is like the most important thing in life on Earth, because it basically it's like a battery. It's like your mitochondria inside your cells. They take the glucose, they process it, and they create this battery called ATP. And then they excrete carbon dioxide. That's why when you hold your breath and you start getting panicky, it's not the decrease in oxygen. You have plenty of oxygen. It's the increase in carbon dioxide from this ATP production that makes you go, I need to breathe, or I need to exhale to get rid of the carbon dioxide. That's what creates the panic. So you need the oxygen to make ATP, otherwise we all die. Your cells don't live without the ATP, and the whole system collapses. Oxygen creates 32 molecules of ATP, so it's fairly efficient at that. It's multi-purpose. It's basically, besides water, it's in more chemical reactions than any other compound in the world. It's the base of energy production for everything. So it started with bacteria and protozoans, and I read a paper about basically how we evolved, and without ATP we wouldn't exist. And so it goes all the way up to multicellular animals, including us. It's our base of energy production. And it creates water and carbon dioxide, and there's billions of, for cell division and everything, there's so many. It's usually a fairly precise process, or it happens so easily, but it does billions of times, that if you only have a couple, then you have these free radicals that are generated. And so your body itself stimulates, this whole ATP production stimulates endogenous antioxidant production. There's catalase, there's superoxide dismutase. Your body naturally creates these antioxidants to handle the ATP production. If you look on here, you can see right here, it's the ATP, and then you get off the carbon dioxide, NADH, and all these ones. But it goes through this whole thing, and it's all swirling around in your body right now. We all have this stuff going on. We're very active as far as our biochemical processes in our body, and we usually can handle it. And this is why, this is my theory. Those endurance athletes, they ride double centuries, and they run marathons. Those people, they die younger than normal people that kind of do moderate exercise. It's because, my theory is, there's people that are just unfit. They eat the wrong foods, they don't exercise. They die younger than everybody else. Everyone kind of accepts that. But the people that are super fit and they do these endurance things, they die younger. And I think it's because they produce a lot of free radicals. And if you do it for a long time, your body does not produce enough endogenous antioxidants to handle from the production of ATP. And so they get oxidative stress. And so these are the main types. I'm sure there's some others. But nitric oxide, and people think, oh, this is really bad. But this is a free radical gas that you actually need for smooth muscle relaxation. It does all sorts of good things. You can see a lot of bodybuilders refer to, we need nitric oxide, and I think when we breathe through our nose, it produces nitric oxide.
I just read something on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they found that people that use mouthwash right after they exercise, that they do not get the benefits of nitric oxide that is generated in your mouth and the bacteria. And so if you exercise, don't brush your teeth right afterwards, was the moral of the story. Because you're destroying the process that creates the nitric oxide that helps the blood flow and the cellular and all that kind of thing. Anyway, so
no, that's
same thing. It was talking about that too, but it's important. Your body generates it, and you can stop that.
And you need it. And you need it. And so it's it all comes down to a balance. We need free radicals, and they're naturally produced, but if you have too much, they're going to kill you. So, and I'll get into vitamin C and exercise too. There's actually a relation there too. There's superoxide. This is the most common. This is, superoxide is this guy right here. And the problem is, when this guy, the superoxide, gets together with nitric oxide, they cause peroxynitrite anion. That's this guy right here, the most potent free radical. If you want to know, it's not like carbon tech causes cancer or asbestos causes cancer. It's this. Everything that's converted to deal with the toxin and the stressor creates these free radicals, and this one being the worst. This guy goes in there and can damage the DNA. You damage the DNA, and then it replicates, and it gets out of control. That's what cancer is. So peroxynitrite, bad stuff, and it removes, and basically, since you need nitric oxide, it removes it from normal vasodilation. So it has that double whammy effect, is it hurts your DNA, and also doesn't let you vasodilate, so you're having blood pressure problems and whatnot. And then you got the hydroxyl radical. That's the most reactive. That's what's, UV radiation. That's why people get skin cancer. That's why I wear a hat, because I was wildly exposed to sunburn when I was a kid. So I react to it pretty easily. But it has antimicrobial qualities. So it's like when I was telling you about the phagocytes, when you get some foreign invader in your body, these phagocytes or lymphocytes or whatever they might be, these white blood cells, they attack it and they envelop it in its own biochemical processes that creates a bleach or a kind of thing, and it kills it, and then it lets then disintegrates it and sends it back out into the system to be recycled. So these are all the different kinds of free radicals, and I think there's probably a few more, but those are the big ones. So the example of oxidative stress in the real world would be suspension trauma. When you take someone's hanging there in their suspension gear, and basically their legs are alive, and they're trying to produce ATP and whatnot, but there's no oxygen getting down to them because you don't have the ulterior blood flow through where the straps are going. So that's when people die. They're hanging more than 7 minutes, and they take them down, and all of a sudden, they're fine, and then all of a sudden they die on the way to the hospital, or they die on the construction site. It's because they have suspension trauma, orthostatic intolerance. They have ischemia, which is deprivation of oxygen to the legs. So when you take them down and you let that flow go back and forth again, it's just a blast. And so you have uric acid in the legs. It comes up, it goes to the heart, the lungs, the liver, and just messes you up. And also, it reperfuses into the area. So you have this anaerobic glycosis, produces lactate. The pH goes down, which means it becomes more acidic. You have ATP hydrolysis, which is going because there's no oxygen, and it's doing the best it can. This is mitochondrial pore transportation, something or other, permeability. So this is your lifeline here. Your mitochondria produces the energy, produces the ATP so your body can live. So when you reperfuse it or reoxygenate your legs and all your blood, you get all these lactic acids, the pH goes back up, but then you get a whole bunch of reactive oxygen species, a whole bunch of free radicals, and that goes through your whole body. It just does, because you have all these oxygen atoms now that are one of the ones on the previous slide, and they just start stealing electrons from lipids, which is your cell wall. It starts stealing electrons from, wherever else, the DNA, and the whole structure of your cells starts shriveling up. So that's what happens in suspension trauma. That's like the reperfusion of that, oxygen-deprived blood does the damage, and that's what kills people. And you got the necrosis. You get the death of your tissue of your body.
Does that cause blood clots? Because I've heard that too from suspension trauma. Like when you get release of blood clot because of is that because of all the free radicals that maybe cause that, or do you
I don't think they cause the blood clot. I think that might be something.
Another reason.
Another reason why you can die from suspension trauma. So,
is there a protocol for after you bring somebody down? You treat for shock?
Don't lie him down.
Don't lie him
down, because that's the blood flow then
Too much of
comes rushing back. So you want to keep them straight up, so it doesn't just go straight to the heart, because the heart is really sensitive. Like, of all the body parts, you can replace a lot of stuff in your body. Your liver gets replenished, I don't know, every year or something. It's always being done over and over. But the heart, once you damage it, it stays damaged. So that's why you don't want oxidative stress with your heart. That's why don't keep your phone in your pocket live next to your heart. Because I've heard of people, anecdotal evidence, but there's people that carry the thing, and I've heard of people think, the guy had heart problems, and he was a young guy. That's something you got to watch out for. And then there's chemical exposure. So you got the, occupational exposure, environmental exposure, and chronic inflammation that's when there's problems there, like an infection or something, and then your body blasts it with cytokines, which is to kill the infection. But that, if you overdo that, that's going to kill you too at the same time. That's what allergic responses are based on. But all this can go to your DNA and shorten your telomeres. So if you look at like our regular chemical exposures, rock minerals, metal powders, fumes, hydrocarbons, everything, it all creates oxidative stress because your body's dealing with this toxin. However, through this complex biochemical interaction to deal with it. And then once it breaks through the lipid barrier, it goes right into your cell, and then it can start plucking electrons right off the DNA strand and start doing double DNA cell strand breaks, causing mutations. It can cause like apoptosis, which is cell death. It'll stimulate the macrophages, which will attack everything. It's going to the big drain on your body, create inflammation from the cytokines all blasting it, and vasodilation, pumping, white blood cells there. And then activation of transcription factors, which is something like you have all this DNA and these proteins, and they do a certain job, but if you affect them a certain way, they can turn on and turn off certain parts of the DNA, or make the protein express itself in a different way, in a way that your body is not useful for the body. So all these things can happen. Oxidative stress.
Can we back up?
Yeah.
So the silicosis exposure is going to be your contaminant from rock minerals, right?
Right.
And so then that's the occupational exposure over here.
Yeah.
And then it goes to chronic inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the routing? How would that route through that?
I think both. So
Okay.
you have chronic oxidative stress, so your body grabs it and tries to deal with it. And the tough thing about these rock minerals is that it's hard to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you have an organic solvent that gets in your body, it gets conjugated in your liver, it gets made polar in your kidneys, and then you either pee it, poop it, or perspire it away.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it stores in your fatty tissue.
And some stores in your fatty tissue.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's why the liver is a target organ for solvent exposure.
Yeah.
Because it's fatty.
Yeah, and so fatty liver disease, which causes metabolic syndrome, we won't get into sugar today, but that's the problem with fatty liver disease. It's like that's what they call a metabolic syndrome, and it causes obesity and all sorts of other problems that cascades down.
So it's basically the right-hand chart. It's hitting all of that then.
Yeah.
Except for not the genetic factors.
Yeah, well, see, ultimately, you're getting chromosomal instability, gene expression. That's the turning on and off certain genes. Biological aging, that would be from the oxidation that ages everything, and impaired cellular function and viability. So just things aren't working right at the cellular level, which is just mind-blowingly small and subtle too. And that's the whole thing, and that's why the cumulative effect. I mean, you can get blasted because I've done the research of when people are seriously overexposed to RF and microwave, they have definite thrombosis of the heart, muscle, and they get headaches, and then there's definite acute symptoms from RF. That's not what we're getting usually on our daily level from Wi-Fi and phones and cell towers and who knows what other people are using. But it all has its subtle effect, and my theory is that your body is compromising your immune system. It's not able to protect itself as much. So the EMF, the RF, whatever, also affects your pineal gland in the center of your brain, which produces melatonin. And the melatonin is a free radical scavenger, and it goes around, it just gives an electron to these free radicals, and then prevents the oxidative stress. So you're taking away the antioxidants through these chemicals or through this environmental exposure. So you're leaving yourself open, and then the problem is when it takes hold, you have peroxynitrite, too much peroxynitrite, you have too much DNA damage, and then it starts cell proliferation, and all of a sudden then that's called cancer. So That's why you want to limit the number of toxins and stuff you're exposed to. And that's my theory. Like over here in Eden Township police station substation, 4 cops came down, or was it 5, with testicular cancer. Young guys, it's like whoa, and they're freaking out. They call the enforcement office up here, and they're like, we don't know what to do. That's not our thing. And our regulation is just like a page and a half long, and half the regulations like what the sign should look like in high RF areas. We don't have a PEL, it's to really speak of that's protective. And so they called in forensic, and they did their study, and I read their study, and they kind of like, yeah, RFs can cause testicular cancer, but in the report they say, oh, well, we don't think it has anything to do with it, though, even though they didn't do any measurements for RF. I mean, I saw the police report, because or the newspaper, whatever, I was online, and it was like, local news, Oakland, and they're standing in front of the police station, and there's like these huge like telecommunications towers sticking out of the thing. And I read the report, and they said they did some modeling of it, of like what the exposure would be, but no actual measurements. So like why do cops and firefighters get all sorts of weird cancers and die young? It's like, well, maybe because of all this RF they're exposed to. And with firefighters especially, they're like putting out car fires, and they're giving off all sorts of styrene and all sorts of weird chemicals as they're putting out a car fire, because cars aren't made of wood, they're made of all sorts of weird modern polymers and whatnot that are right at your kidneys and doing all sorts of weird stuff. So that's my theory with them. So it's it's happening, and especially it's like, can you draw the link though? And so people don't want to admit that it's there. So going to the electromagnetic fields, basically it affects your chemical bonds, energy levels, the spin direction, and if you're in the field itself, it creates a vibratory problem where it opens up the voltage gated ion channels. So your body is basically electrical. It's like if per square whatever volume, we're highly electric. It's like 1,000,000 volts per meter in our body. And so when you're talking about your phone giving off 6 volts per meter, it's like, oh, that's nothing. But we are intensely electrical. That's how our body communicates, all our cells. And so you have voltage gated sodium channels, potassium channels, calcium channels. But the one I'm focusing on, and what all the research is focused on, is calcium channels, which controls the shape of the electrical signaling, and it has a lot more to do with the heart and the head. That's where the calcium channels are mostly at, and they all have specific duties. When you're blasted with EMF, it opens up the calcium channels, which are like proteins that are in the cell wall, and floods the cell with ions, and it can cause cell death, straight up cell death, or it can just alter things in ways that your body's not good for your body. So you got the calcium, nitric oxide, and you mix that with some kind of other, the super ion, and then you got peroxynitrite. Definitely, can affect the DNA right there. You got superoxides, you got other free radicals that are thing, and they get all the pathological effects from these voltage gated calcium channels that are in the cell wall. And so this is all happening at microscopic level, affecting your body. And it can alter the transcription, the translation of genes, and protein expression. And when you have a dysfunctional mitochondria, that's when you get more, when you're just creating ATP normally, if there's any problem with the mitochondria, it's going to create more free radicals. So then it's almost it's a loop, and then it can cause more. The loop can cause more problems along the way. That's why antioxidants, exogenous oxidants, which I'll get into in the latter slide, is very important. So the plasma membrane is everything. Things get in, things get out, and this is where like metals come into it, because your body, your electrical body, it takes metals into the process, especially iron and selenium, and puts those to work. And that all has to do with the intracellular signaling cascades. So your body, it's like right now we're all sitting here, your body is just like doing all this work behind the scenes, with electrochemical signaling inside your body to make sure you remain healthy, you know. And it's amazing how many chemicals go into us just living. So the decrease of, so when you affect it, like I said before, it can decrease the amount of endogenous, so you can decrease your melatonin, it can decrease your catalase and your superoxide dismutase and, you know, all these other antioxidants that would take care of you normally, but if you suppress them, they won't be able to handle the free radicals.
That's what marijuana does to you. One of the side effects.
Oh, is it?
It reduces your body's ability to make melatonin.
Oh, really?
So people that smoke marijuana, I know this because I know someone who was having trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
I was trying to help this person, and I have to smoke it to sleep.
Right.
So I did some research on it. It's like you realize actually smoking it, it's a
It suppresses your melatonin?
It suppresses your melatonin.
Ah, okay. So it would be better,
Not-
like this whole, I smoke the indica because, you know, it helps me go to sleep. You're making your body used to whatever, you're
Right.
replacing it,
Right.
and all of a sudden your body can't naturally produce melatonin,
Yes.
and then you're dependent on it to go to sleep. Okay, that makes total sense.
It's interesting because it's being prescribed broadly as a sleep aid.
Yep. You look it up.
Yeah.
It messes up your ability to make melatonin.
Interesting. Yeah, and melatonin itself, it's sold right out of like any kind of store. And
So maybe they're saying take this and some melatonin.
right. And the melatonin is a powerful hormone, you know, and you know, it's not prescribed or anything. So I was at a class with the Stanford neurology professor, and he was just saying, I was like, what about melatonin to help you fall asleep? And they're like, it's okay to, like, if you're jet lagged or something, and to put yourself to
Back on
sleep,
the cycle. They get you back.
get you back in the cycle, but regular use, it's a powerful hormone. And he says, you don't know what you're messing with, so be careful with the melatonin, ultimately. So yeah, inhibits melatonin, a free radical scavenger. So this is kind of how it would look. You know, you have the interaction between the RF and your body, and how much you know it absorbs. You know, and it can be at levels that are so low that your body can handle it. But you know, repeated chronic exposure. The Wi-Fi is next to your head while you're sleeping for 8 hours. Or you probably wouldn't be sleeping for 8 hours if you have the Wi-Fi next to your head or your phone next to your bed. Or even your alarm clock, which gives off ELF, which is extremely low frequency waves. That's the magnetic waves. So if you have a plug-in alarm clock, put it on the other side of the room, or get a battery one if you're going to put it next to your head, because the ELF is going to, the magnetic fields are going to affect you while you sleep. And if you have like one of those, not the cell phones, but like one of those cordless phones, those give off massive amounts of EMF, and so your cordless phone, like your base station, gives it off at like 2.3 gigahertz, which is like the RF microwave range, and it's giving off a ton of it all the time, 24/7. So if you have a cordless phone, either get rid of it or put that base station far away from you, and also don't talk on it too much, because you're putting it next to your head, and it has to communicate with the base station from there. So this is the way it goes. You know, transduction, it affects the ion currents, the molecules, and the signaling. Your cells are all constantly talking with each other, saying, "Hey, Bob, what's going on over here? I think we need some more ions over there." And then you have biological response, changes in cell behavior, and then ultimately cell dysfunction in effect, and then it goes to progression toward disease. So antioxidants, we all hear about it, like, you gotta have antioxidants in your diet. Eat your blueberries, because they are definitely an antioxidant, and an exogenous antioxidant. But they inhibit the production of pro-oxidants, free radicals, and prevent oxidation. And so they have an electron to give. That's why, like ascorbic acid, vitamin C, it gives an electron to the free radicals and just calms them all down. And you have the endogenous ones. This is stuff in all our bodies that are just working all the time. Is superoxide dismutase, catalase, and glutathione. Like glutathione is like amazing stuff. If we didn't have it working on it for us right now, we'd all just like keel over and die.
Some good glutathione going.
Glutathione is like hugely important. Like you read stuff like going, it's an ugly name, but I'm like going, it does so much. It like it saves us every day. Like a couple dozen times a week we get cancer, and it's because of these things that phagocytes and lymphocytes and leukocytes and these antioxidants doing their job is that we don't get cancer. But there's stuff invading our bodies all the time. There's all sorts of bad. When you have a cell division, you have some errors in there. Because the DNA itself, if you stretched out if you took one cell in your body and you took the DNA and stretched it out, it would be a meter long. And so, if you added up all the DNA in your body and stretched it in a long line, it would go past Pluto. So it's a lot of DNA is just packed in each cell, and then we have whatever 60 trillion cells in our body, and they're all dividing and being recycled. So you can supplement this with exogenous antioxidants, vitamin C being number one. That's why you say, you get sick, take some vitamin C. That's why, because you want to give your body that extra antioxidant to take care of all the oxidants that it's creating and fighting the disease. E and D, beta carotene. And so you need enzymes too. They're for the endogenous antioxidants. So you want to make sure you have enough selenium, iron, copper, and zinc. Of course, too much is always a bad thing. But I get a package of Brazil nuts, and I eat one or two a day to get my selenium, because I read on the internet that was that's good for me. So that's what they do. They prevent, they detoxify, and it can be either of those. You might want to supplement them.
I've heard the people that use cast iron skillets, they have never had problems with having low iron.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So and the Teflon, on the other hand, which I do have,
You
has
do?
the PFASs,
Yeah.
which is
PFOAs.
PFOAs.
C8.
Yeah.
Yeah. DuPont.
Right.
Parkersburg, West Virginia.
I make sure that I don't scrape it or anything, but still, is it still giving off me? I should get rid of all my Teflon. How do you
Gone.
cook? How do you cook?
Cast
Everything
iron,
sticks. Everything
cast
sticks.
iron.
No, I have 3 cast iron skillets. That's what I
Cast
use for almost everything.
Right.
You get them seasoned, and they are amazing.
You have to remember that 3M developed that.
But
Yeah.
you don't
Science.
wash them with dish soap.
Nope, no dish soap.
You just kind
Wipe
of
'em.
you bake it off and scrape it up.
Scrape them off,
Yeah.
wipe them
You
off.
don't really scrape them, right? Because you,
No, but if they're seasoned, they're not going to stick.
Mhm.
Like you got to get them. You got to
Yeah.
get them good and
Takes a
seasoned.
process.
Yeah, my wife uses them a lot too, and they're pretty nice.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm getting some new pans.
3M,
Take mine out.
developed that chemical they use it in Scotchgard and other
Yeah.
products, and then they did their
Is it
own,
cast iron?
Oh, yeah,
animal
sometimes.
studies,
Yeah, especially
and
from
saw
Canada.
reproductive hazards,
Yeah, no
cancer
go.
hazards. They
They're
sold
heavy,
it to
I mean,
DuPont and
you don't really
disclosed
wanna
this.
use it,
Yeah.
but
And
once
DuPont
you got
said,
them
no,
seasoned,
we're going to
it's
do
kinda
this
nice.
because we can use this product. This was developed out of World War II, I think. It was originally for other uses, but we're going to develop this line of cooking pans and stuff. This
Right.
Teflon non-stick and stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, that's that whole story.
PFASs. Yeah.
Well, and they're so stable in the environment. So there's all this water is
Contaminated.
yeah, around the world. I mean, besides in the communities where the plants were, there's a plant in North or South Carolina.
Yeah.
Cast iron.
Cast iron.
Cast iron, good
Okay.
old cast iron.
Will do.
Yeah.
So that gets us to diet and exercise. There's things, cell-protected foods. This is a sampling of them. That's why I'm always eating broccoli, stuffing broccoli down my son's throat, covering it with cheese just to make it palatable. Walnuts I like. Turmeric is in the Indian food. Curcumin's well known for its antioxidant properties. Cinnamon. Green tea has, I forgot the name of what it has in it, but green tea has all sorts of good antioxidants. Basically, it's almost like medicine, garlic, red grapes, it has resveratrol, I think, on it. Resveratrol. And St. John's wort. And that people take that for mental, things that
Yeah.
help with depression and whatnot.
But that's the toxicity of that.
Yes, and that is one of those suspect carcinogens.
Dose makes the poison on that one.
Exactly. And that's the
Yeah.
whole thing. What comes down to this
Yes.
is homeostasis. It's
I mean, broccoli has carcinogens in it.
right.
So
it's all a balance.
Yeah, right.
It's all a balance.
But
And then exercise, and this is getting to
the
your
black grapes is in red wine too, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Mark wants to know that
Yeah.
you just
Yes.
Hey Mark, you can triple your intake of red wine. I know you've got your vineyard at Heart of Work down there in San Luis Obispo. So.
You too can be healthy.
And they do mention wine as having antioxidants.
Red wine.
So red wine.
Red,
exactly.
they always say it's always red wine.
Right. It's always red.
Although the tannins then also have their other things. So side effects.
But ultimately, the poison
not
makes
bad.
the dose, and like anything, it's the application. What is therapeutic? And so some radio frequencies can be used to help stimulate bone growth or to help with depression. If they do it like transcranial or something. But then there's completely overexposure and not to the right body part, and then it goes from therapeutic to toxic. So you want to do it the right way and have your doses to be correct.
I wonder if you're showing bell peppers, but the capsicum and and jalapenos and habaneros and all those are much higher. Obviously they're hotter.
Right.
I wonder if those are healthier to be eating even hotter peppers.
I generally think
Rather than sweet peppers.
they're definitely vegetables and probably
Right.
have a lot of the same qualities and
Yeah, it does.
There's a recent study on the hot peppers.
Yeah.
And they were saying if you eat it 3 times a week, that your cancer rates significantly go
Really?
down. Yeah.
Well, the hot peppers were going to have more capsicum, so
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
I think the red and yellows has more vitamins in it than the green too.
Uh-huh.
yeah, and I think that and as far as the red versus yellow and green, I think it's just an age issue. It's like they all changes all the different colors. I
And
think,
the green goes to red.
and
I
then
don't know about the yellow.
But bell peppers, though, that's different.
I don't know. I react badly with all of those, so I'm going to stay away from the peppers. And the thing is, you have to know your own body. I mean,
Right.
not everything is. You got to figure out what works for you because everyone has different genetic makeups and certain cultures. Most of the people have reactions to certain things, and they don't have that in their diet. And other people, have it throughout their diet, probably because it works for them. But then there's exercise. This promotes antioxidant gene expression because when you exercise, you're stimulating that the voltage-gated calcium channels are firing up the ATP, and the ATP is producing or in production of ATP, you're producing free radicals, but your body's expecting that, and then it ramps up the endogenous antioxidants within your body. So, and that's why the doctor always says get some exercise. Not running 100 miles or something like that, but it has long-lasting effect. Moderate exercise has long-lasting effects. It promotes insulin insensitivity, but if you take vitamin C while you're exercising or right before or after, it nullifies the effects of exercising, which I thought was interesting. I read that, I'm like, what?
That's very similar to what does with the.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if you don't take vitamin C every day. So basically, when you're maybe feeling a little sick or something, and you can't exercise, take the vitamin C, E, or D, or yeah. And when you're exercising, stay away from the vitamin C because it's actually taking away from the beneficial effects of exercise. So long story short, basically achieving homeostasis takes most of your energy of the body. This whole idea of that calories in, calories out thing is BS. Your body doesn't work that way. Your body's maintaining itself and using a lot of its energy just to keep us balanced and whole and walking around. And the oxidative stress results are too many oxidants, depletion of the antioxidants, and basically the overwhelming of the antioxidants in your body. So once you overwhelm the antioxidants in your body, it starts grabbing electrons from the lipids and from the DNA and starts causing all sorts of problems. From the proteins that have all sorts of functions of hormones and enzymes. And it starts messing everything up. And so it creates double-strand DNA breaks, which is, everyone knows, really bad. You don't want to be breaking your strands. And gene expression, turning off and on genes. They call oncogenes in the cancer world. It damages proteins, protein expression, myriad of foods. There's so many, other things that can be going on, but these are the main ones. And you can prevent it by, limiting your exposure to toxins. Don't go sucking down, organic solvents or silica dust or, putting your phone next to your head and talking for a half hour, and you want to boost your body's natural defenses, exercise and good diet. And here's a nice thing I stole from the internet, talking about all the different things that can happen from oxidative stress. You know, aging is basically the big one, and cancer, which everyone talks about. But there's all sorts of ones. Is there any questions as far as the
Back in
foundation?
college.
So, I'm just thinking about people that are on cancer treatment. They're treating one cancer and they're getting bombarded with all these medications, which is causing more. I mean, it just seems like that's a pretty lousy
Yeah.
cycle to be in,
Attacks
right?
your immune
Yeah.
system.
So what they call that the therapeutic window.
Okay.
So there's a window between where you kill the pathogen, the cancer, and there's a window before it kills you. You know, and then they call that, like, that's why people, when they get, you know, chemotherapy and whatnot, or get an alpha emitter put next to the cancer, they're trying to work within that therapeutic window. So their treatment doesn't kill the patient, but it kills the cancer itself. So, but you are going to get sick in that window for
Right.
sure.
So they check, a lot of times they'll check your levels before they'll administer the chemo right at the last minute to make sure,
Sure.
Yeah.
you're
Not
not
getting
in a
out
low
of-
trough and you're going to die from that treatment.
Right. And there's like a whole host of biomarkers that they check for, and if any of them are on, they can mean different things. I mean, it's amazing. Like, you can keep, because all these different things are like, it's like there's so many. It's like a garden with, you know, 50,000 different plants, but in this case, it's molecules and enzymes and all sorts of things, and chemicals that are doing their bit, and the doctors haven't. They're still learning. I mean, they still don't know. Like, well, we did this cancer treatment and it killed 50% of the patients, so we altered it a little bit, and now it's better. And they're guessing. The doctors are guessing, you know, and everyone tries to poo-poo the RF and microwave radiation has biological. No, it has biological effects. We just don't know the mechanism. And the same thing goes with cancer treatment. They know there's biological effects. They don't know the mechanism. They're guessing. You know, and they're saying, well, this seems to work, so we'll add a little bit of this, you know, medicine or chemical into the mix and see if the patients do better. And the ultimately, once you've got on that side, it's you're in a losing situation. So you just want to prevent from anything taking hold. Keep yourself as healthy as possible. Keep your oxidative stress to a minimum until you get so old, your telomeres are short, and everything's failing, and you go fast, you know. And that's how it used to be, you know. It's like now we have, like, you know, diseases of modern civilization, and, you know, we cause the disease with our modern civilization, but then we're trying to catch up by having all the medicines to deal with the diseases that we caused from our unhealthy diets, exposure to toxins and whatnot. Oh, someone has an emergency.
Got a call, huh?
Yeah, someone's subbing as moonlighting as an ambulance attendant. Okay, that's fine. So keep yourself and, you know, do your best to keep, you know, the antioxidants, you know, high. Keep your exposure low. Get enough sleep, because that's the melatonin that will help clean up the free radicals as you go along. I think this is the last slide. Yeah. Yep, that's it.
Nice job, Nick.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A lot of work.
Hey, Gary, can you send me a copy of that PowerPoint?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It has all sorts of